It started with a blur on a screen. From a distance, some thought it was a trick of the light. A figure perched on the roof of the student center, motionless against the gray sky. But others swore they saw him move.
You'll see it highlighted right there in a building that's just opposite the event, opposite of where Charlie Kirk was shot. As of now, no suspect has been publicly identified. 2 people were taken into custody, but then released yesterday.
Witnesses in the courtyard said it was like watching a ghost appear out of nowhere, a shadow shifting at the edge of their vision. Then came the footage. Grainy CCTV video from a security camera mounted near the library. It shows the figure stepping to the ledge, then jumping, landing hard, stumbling, and sprinting toward the tree line. For a few seconds, the frame fills with chaos. Students running, alarms blaring, law enforcement flooding the scene. And then, he's gone, into the woods. By nightfall, every available officer was searching those woods. Drones, helicopters, canines, all focused on one question. Who was the man on the roof? What they didn't yet know was that the figure they were chasing had already covered miles, that his escape was not chaos, but choreography, and that before the night was over, the manhunt would stretch far beyond the campus.
Welcome to Episode 2 of University of Murder, Season 3. What really happened at UVU? In Episode 1, we took you to Orem, Utah, home to Utah Valley University, and walked you minute by minute through one of the darkest days in the school's history. We saw how a normal morning turned into chaos, and how law enforcement raced to secure the campus after shots rang out from above. If you haven't watched that episode yet, stop here and go back. It sets the stage for everything that follows. Because in this episode, we're going deep inside the manhunt, the urgent search to identify, find, and arrest the sniper who brought terror to the heart of UVU. You'll hear how investigators followed fragments of video, digital breadcrumbs, and old-fashioned intuition to close in on their suspect. And make sure you're subscribed, because in Episode 3, we'll go even further, inside the twisted mind of the man behind it all. Almost immediately after the shooting at Utah Valley University, the investigation took a dramatic detour. A 71-year-old man named George Zinn approached campus law enforcement shortly after the incident. Witnesses captured video of him in the courtyard, repeatedly shouting, "I shot him, now shoot me." He was unarmed. He did not match witness descriptions of the shooter.
And I do want to take you out to some of this video that you may have seen on the day of that assassination here, as investigators now say the man who they initially thought was Charlie Kirk's assassin admitted to screaming that he was the gunman to allow the real shooter to get away. Earlier today, the Utah Department of Public Safety explained George Zinn had attended that event, and after the gunshot was fired, he screamed that he had shot Charlie Kirk. Viral videos like this one showing Zinn as he was quickly taken into custody by authorities there.
Police took him into custody as a person of interest. Inside the command center, officers scrambled. Could this be the gunman? Resources were temporarily diverted, cameras were rechecked, and the manhunt shifted focus. But as interrogation proceeded, the story unraveled. Zinn later told investigators that he was not the shooter. He admitted that he had shouted the confession intentionally. His goal? To divert attention from the real perpetrator and to become, in his words, a martyr. Authorities confirmed there was no evidence linking Zinn to the actual shooting. There was no weapon, no ballistic match, no surveillance placing him on the rooftop. It turned out that Zinn is a self-described political agitator, and he reportedly has a history of mental health issues and was also known to Utah authorities for his habit of disrupting public events. In other words, he was a dead end who intentionally wasted valuable time in the immediate aftermath of the shooting. Because of his actions, Zinn was charged with a second-degree felony count of obstruction of justice, on the grounds that his false confession caused confusion during a critical phase of the investigation. Moreover, while investigating the incident, investigators discovered troubling content on Zinn's phone. He admitted to using his device to view illegal material. A forensic search later revealed over 20 images involving extremely troubling content. In effect, the false confession became a cautionary subplot. Not only did it add noise to an already chaotic crime scene, but it also resulted in separate charges that revealed a much deeper pattern of criminal behavior. Later that afternoon, a second individual who was variously described as the subject of the killing by the FBI and a person of interest by authorities in Utah was detained and questioned. Shortly after the announcement, it was revealed that the unnamed person had been released after questioning by law enforcement. Meanwhile, the sniper from the roof had vanished. The lockdown on campus continued as police formed search teams, sweeping buildings and setting up a perimeter around the student center. Helicopters circled overhead. Inside the command post, investigators huddled around a bank of monitors. They replayed the grainy CCTV footage again and again, trying to retrace the sniper's movements that day. They noted the man's arrival on campus that morning in a gray Dodge Challenger. They found video of him moving around the campus. Images began to trickle out in the media of a young-looking man wearing a hat, sunglasses, and a long-sleeve black shirt with an American flag on the front. As law enforcement viewed more and more footage, the picture became clearer. Footage of what appeared to be the same man was released, showing him jumping from the roof of the Losi Center and ambling across a road into a small patch of woods near the campus. What they saw was unsettling. The jump, the landing, the way he ran, fast, deliberate, confident, not panicked, not random. Whoever he was, he'd planned this. The manhunt had just begun. The next morning, at daybreak, investigators pushed out from the rooftop toward the greenbelt just off the event space. Within a short distance of the scene, search teams located a high-powered, bolt-action rifle concealed in vegetation. According to officials, the weapon was recovered in a wooded/bushy area along the suspect's apparent escape route and was promptly sent to the FBI laboratory for forensic testing. Reporters, citing court filings and prosecutors, later added granular detail. The rifle, described as a .30-06 Mauser-type bolt-action, was allegedly stashed in bushes only a few hundred feet from the shooting site, wrapped in a towel, and could not be retrieved by the suspect because police were already saturating the area. Prosecutors say DNA testing tied the firearm to the accused, and it is believed that the rifle had been a gift from the suspect's grandfather. Separately, wire service accounts confirmed the core facts. A bolt-action rifle believed to be the murder weapon was found near the scene during the 33-hour manhunt. But the most startling discovery may have been in the magazine and casings found nearby. Both the fired shells and several unfired rounds bore engraved inscriptions. At a press conference, the governor revealed some of those messages.
So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital OWO, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO."
Investigators noted that the messages appeared to reference internet meme culture, gaming culture. For example, the up arrow / right arrow / down arrow sequence, which mirrors a command in a popular shooter video game, and anti-fascist symbolism, the Bella Ciao refrain. The inscriptions raised immediate questions about motive. Was this simply trolling? A shock statement? A political message? The answer wasn't clear, but in practical terms, the engravings were critical clues. They tied the weapon to the suspect's personal digital footprint, to his tastes, to his ideological leanings, and to a network of online references that investigators would later explore. We will get much deeper into the discussion of these memes in episode 3.
Taken together, the recovery of the rifle, so close to where the shot was fired, became the crucial physical link that turned scattered sightings and video fragments into a more focused case. While police were still combing the woods around Utah Valley University, the most important clue wasn't discovered in the field. It appeared on a phone screen. According to investigators, hours after the shooting, Tyler Robinson sent a series of text messages to the person he lived with, a roommate who was also, quietly, his romantic partner. Those messages would become the emotional core of the case. The first one read, "Drop what you are doing, look under my keyboard." When the roommate did, they found a folded sheet of paper. Scrawled in ink were the words, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." The roommate texted back immediately, confused, desperate to believe it was some sort of joke. Robinson replied, "I am still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." When the roommate asked, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson answered, "I am. I'm sorry." That short exchange confirmed what law enforcement had been chasing for nearly a day: the identity of the man on the roof. Within hours, the roommate contacted investigators, turning over the note and the messages. Prosecutors later described that cooperation as one of the most critical moments in the entire manhunt. It placed Robinson in Orem, tied him to the rifle, and showed intent, all before he ever walked into a police station. The texts didn't sound like triumph. They sounded like surrender. The words of someone who already knew there was no way back. Meanwhile, in Washington, Utah, a quiet suburb about 4 hours from Orem by car, Matthew Robinson, like most of the country, was viewing the images of the suspected shooter that had been released by law enforcement. Unlike most of the country, Matthew immediately recognized his son Tyler in those images. The build, the posture, even the way the right shoulder dipped slightly as he ran.
It was a massive manhunt, more than 33 hours, that ended only after Robinson's family turned him in. A source tells us that Robinson's father recognized his son after seeing these images, and it wasn't images you could look at and realize if that was somebody you knew well or that was your child, you would recognize them. Well, his parents did. And when confronted by his father, Robinson confessed, according to another source.
He knew that stance. He had seen it 1,000 times before. His heart sank as the realization of what needed to happen crept across his consciousness. No parent wants to drop a dime on their kid, but Matthew knew what was right. Matthew and his wife Amber, Tyler's mother, tried to reach Tyler, first by phone, then by text. No answer. A few hours later, he called back. They told him what they'd seen, that the police knew who he was, that it wasn't too late to do the right thing. After a long silence, he agreed to come home. When Robinson arrived, his parents were waiting, terrified but calm. They'd already called someone they trusted, an elder from their Latter-day Saint congregation, a retired police detective. He came quickly, entering the house quietly, speaking to Robinson not as an officer, but as someone who understood both faith and consequence. For hours, the three of them talked about accountability, about grace, about what would happen if he ran, and what might happen if he faced it. Eventually, Robinson agreed. Just before midnight, accompanied by his parents and the church elder, he drove to the Washington County Sheriff's Office. There, without resistance, he turned himself in. The manhunt was over.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident.
In the command post miles away, the radio call came through just after 1 a.m. Suspect in custody turned himself in. Officers who'd been awake for nearly 2 days let out a collective breath. The search was finished, but the questions and the darkness behind them were only beginning. When Tyler Robinson turned himself in to authorities in Washington County, the manhunt was over. But a confession alone isn't enough to convict. For investigators, there was still a lot of work to do. Remarkably, law enforcement had put together an impressive amount of evidence against Robinson in just the 33 hours it took to apprehend him. Piece by piece, they'd assembled the story of what had happened on the UVU rooftop. There was the murder weapon, a .30-06 bolt-action Mauser-style weapon, recovered from the brush just off campus. It wasn't just any gun. It had been a gift from Robinson's grandfather, a family heirloom passed down years earlier. That connection alone tied the weapon to his name. Moreover, forensics confirmed what investigators already suspected. DNA matching Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger and on the towel that had been wrapped around it. On the rooftop itself, crime scene technicians recovered palm prints on the ledge where the shooter had hung off before dropping to the ground. Those prints matched Robinson's. Along the escape route, investigators found muddy footprints from Converse sneakers, the same size and tread pattern as the shoes he owned. Inside the rifle's magazine were the engraved bullet casings, the bizarre memes and phrases that had stunned the public. Each phrase pointed to Robinson's unique online footprint, the mix of internet irony, gaming references, and radical subculture that would later become the heart of the prosecution's case. Digital forensics traced messages and posts on Robinson's devices that hinted at preparation, discussions about rifle optics, shooting positions, even commentary about making a statement. Then came the visual evidence, surveillance footage placing him on campus before the shooting, and the rooftop images that his own parents recognized. And finally, there was the confession. After turning himself in, Robinson admitted to firing the shot that killed Charlie Kirk. He spoke calmly, without emotion. Investigators later described it as one of the most unsettling interviews of their careers. So it would seem that by the end of that night, law enforcement had everything they needed. The weapon used, which was easily tied to him by family and forensics. Prints and footprints tracing his path. His DNA on the trigger. The engravings that connected the crime to his digital life. And his own words confirming it all. For prosecutors, it was more than enough to charge him. For investigators, it was the moment when a sprawling manhunt became a single, undeniable truth. The man on the roof wasn't a phantom, or a mystery. He was Tyler Robinson. And the question now wasn't who, it was why. In the hours and days after the shooting at Utah Valley University, confusion gave way to clarity. What began with a single shadow on a rooftop became a statewide manhunt, one that ended not with a gunfight, but with a quiet surrender. We learned how investigators pieced together the story, bit by bit, one piece of evidence at a time. We saw how the shooter's own parents, faced with the unthinkable, helped bring the search to an end. And we began to glimpse the strange mixture of irony, ideology, and isolation that may have driven him there. In the next episode, we'll go deeper. We'll step inside the digital world and the fractured psyche of Tyler Robinson, tracing the online obsessions, the memes, and the mindset that turned from noise to violence. It's a journey into motive, not to excuse, but to understand. And then, in episode 4, we'll enter the courtroom, where prosecutors, defense attorneys, and a nation will confront the question of accountability and what justice might look like in a case that stunned the country.
If you found this story interesting, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Your support helps us continue to tell these stories with the depth, respect, and context they deserve. This is University of Murder. What really happened at UVU? We'll see you in episode 3.